Hi there. Here we are with release 6 of the Lisa Richardson Crochet Along 2017 Felted Tweed Blanket. The pattern, I've downloaded the pattern and I'm ready to go. Just from the front picture here, I can see that this join is done with the ginger color. So I've got my ginger ready. I've got my crochet hook, and let's look at the pattern. Reading all of this, it boils down to the motif is joined using a flat slip stitch seam as follows. Rowan is asking you to work into the back stitches of each edge stitch, the back leg of each edge stitch, sorry, and you literally just go through, down and through corresponding stitches on the adjoining motifs, yarn over and bring it through and slip stitch everything together with the stitch that's already on your needle. So let's give that a try. Of course, first you have to get all of your motifs into their specific sections. You'll notice that once you have all your motifs sorted, you have them all blocked and labeled, right? So once you've got them all sorted into these sections, you will have 6 extras, and they must be used separately within the design. But right now we're putting together these multiple motif blocks, either 2 or 4. I'll use a 4 motif block to demonstrate, because then we'll go straight across from right to left down the middle and from top to bottom, doing this slip stitch flat seam. I'm going to do the section 3, which is release 5, number 6, release 1, number 4, release 3, number 2, and release 2, number 5. We'll be working from right to left. We'll go across these 2 and then continuing on, joining, keeping the yarn intact and going straight across here. If you were just doing a 1 motif seam, you would start and stop at either end, of course. But I think it's important to show you how to get across this join here, and then again when you come back down the other way. Now, I do a little bit of prep work before I start a seam. It's we're going to be working with 2 different motifs with 2 different edges. It's hard enough when everything matches up perfectly to align stitches when you're doing a seam, but we do know that all of these motifs have 27 stitches from corner to corner. So what I'm doing is using a very fine needle and picking up the stitches beforehand. I leave them in there for a little while. I give them a little tug, and that way it opens it up a little. Wool bounces right back. It doesn't stay open for long. But it does help me with the seaming. So what I like to do is starting right in the corner, and this is a 3-stitch corner, so I think it's this one right here. I go along and pick up all of the bottom or the back legs of the edge stitches. So here I've taken each of my squares and I have picked up the 27 back or bottom loops of the edge stitch. You don't have to do this. This is just me doing this for the purpose of demonstrating to you. I need to be able to get into the stitches easily. I give them a little tug and pull them out just to loosen them up a little bit, so that I can get in there. You could do this too, or if you're comfortable, maybe your stitches are a little looser than mine, you'll be able to get in there no problem. This was just to help me get my 27 stitches all lined up before I started. So I'm going to work from this side across, and we're going to carry on with these two motifs right across to here. Okay? Join your yarn onto your needle with a loop, holding the tail in your right hand. Place your yarn through the middle of the motifs. That way it's already behind your motifs. You go through corresponding loops on each motif, from the top down on the front one and from the top down on the back motif. And so there you end up, you've got 3 loops on your crochet hook. Yarn over. And I need to do a little twiddle of my crochet hook to get through all 3 of these loops, especially when I'm trying to demonstrate for you. So I twiddle back a little bit to go through that back loop, and then to the front for the front loop, and then again to the front to get through the 3rd loop. And there's our first stitch. So let's do that again. From the top down into the back loop of that back arm of that stitch, through the back arm of the back stitch, the back motif. You can tell this is boggling my brain because I can't even really talk about it right. I gotta say, it is fiddly, but you're going to see what a beautiful seam this makes. This actually works better for me on my knee. Having to have it flat and extended out for me for the camera doesn't help, as you can imagine. So let's just look here. I think we've got about three or four stitches, and you can see exactly what's happening. You're getting this beautiful flat seam, and I quite like the look of it. I'm going to carry on, and I'll show it to you in a couple of minutes when I've done some more. So I've been seaming right along here. It's quite, as I say, it's a lot easier for me when I pick this up and put it on my knee. So I've been able to get across here. When you get to the end, you must make sure you get the final edge stitch to bring it up to the perfect corner. And you can see by getting that corner stitch, it's nice, this line here is nice and straight. So do your last stitch. Congratulate yourself at this point and move in your next two pieces. Again, I've had these on my little extender needles, so I'll take them out. And again, critical to get the corner stitch. So in this case, it's this one right here. Oh, this is a 3 chain corner, so the corner stitch is that one right there. Snug everything up, bringing the loop from these first two motifs up and close. Pulling it snug, but not too tight. Holding some tension on it. Bringing the working yarn through the loop on the back motif, on the front motif, and then through the loop on the hook. And there's your join. Keep going across here. I'll meet you at the end. See what a nice little join that is? Okay, I'm going to carry on across and I'll meet you at the very end of this motif. Because of the color, the dark purple color of this motif, I've actually resorted to putting the bottom loops back on the thin knitting needle to help me. You do what you have to do. Maybe you'll be fine. Maybe I just, maybe the light's not the greatest here right now. So this is what I'm using to help me, and it doesn't matter as long as you get to where you want to go. So in this case, I can pick up the needle and just come from behind through that loop. And there I am. Yarn over, through the loop on the back, through the loop on the front, and a little twist, and you're through the loop on the chain. So this is actually working quite well for me. And as I say, it's probably the combination of the color and the fact that this is one of those motifs that has this very loose edge. So do what you have to do. I'm going to finish off these last few stitches, and I'll show you how to finish the very, very last stitch. Only 2 more to go. And here is the last stitch. It's the corner stitch. I wasn't watching. I hope it didn't go off camera there. So pull a loop out. Have a good look. Make sure you're happy. I love how that goes right across there. Break it off and feed it up through the loop to finish off. There you go, one seam. So now we're going to work down top to bottom. Oh gosh, look at these are 2 of those loopy edges. Shall I start here and work down, or shall I? I think what I'll do is you start exactly the way I did here, loop your yarn on the hook, work down here. I'm going to do that off camera because it'll be faster and frankly less stressful for me. And then I'll meet you at this center bit and show you how that's worked. Okay, so get going with your seaming, and I'll see you soon back here. To join these 2 motifs, and this being a dark color, the dark purple shade, I actually resorted to putting the bottom loops on my thin double-pointed needles. And then as I worked across, I would go down through the loop on the front needle, swooping through the back and up on the loop on the back needle, taking them off and working them that way. And it's actually worked out quite well. I've proceeded along. So you can also count your stitches and make sure you have enough that you're working evenly across. So I picked up 26 back loops because 27 is already worked in the center stitch. So you can see it's a little odd. The working yarn is coming underneath that center stitch, and we're working across with this loop. When we get to the middle, it is going to be quite interesting, but I will show you how that works. These last couple of loops are tricky, even trickier and fiddlier than what we've been doing. So I've got the last 2 loops on here. I'm actually going to have to hold them with my finger and go underneath and loop the working yarn around and bring the working yarn up. I'm not going to chance doing this by hand because I'll drop them. I'm going to use my little double-pointed needle to do that. So now we've done 26 stitches right up to this last stitch. The working yarn is coming from here. Now what we want to do is go across and over that stitch with the next step. So going down through this stitch and down through the first stitch on the back motif, the bottom leg, working yarn around, through, and through. So you have this lovely little cross over the top. But it's joined here and it's joined here. Okay, these two motifs will be easier because they have nice, clean, matching edges. So I will motor along here and I'll meet you near the end. What have I learned from this this experience? That my crochet hook is not static. I'm used to knitting needles staying, you know, in the same position, but when you're using a crochet hook, you're diving down into this stitch, and then you're diving down into this stitch, the bottom leg of this stitch. If you can't see it, it's not a problem to use a needle to pick it up. Then you go round, your crochet hook is twisting to go through this back loop, and then it's twisting to come through the front loop, and then it's sort of standing on its head to go through the final loop. And so that's all sort of new to me, that the crochet hook is maneuvering around to make this simpler. And I can tell you, just by doing this motif, things have I'm feeling better about my hook manipulation. So I'm going to get across to here and finish off, and then we'll have a little look at what's happening. See, so much simpler once you get that through your head. Okay, so when you get to the end, same thing, just pull the yarn through your loop. And there we go. Now you might wonder why Rowan calls for this this seam. I started my first two motifs going through the back loops, but working along the top. I didn't understand this business about keeping the yarn below, and it makes a lovely seam. It's got a little bit of a ridge versus this one's the one we're doing is quite flat, but if you watch, it's got quite a bit of give to it. Using the one that Rowan describes, the slip stitch flat seam, not quite as much give. I think it gives a more controlled seam for your Afghan. So I think this one is well worth the aggravation, at least it is for me. But if it's not for you, do whatever seaming that you prefer. Doesn't matter really. Saved by the bell there. So all I have to do now is attach a label here to remind me which block this is. And I made the label so that it shows me the orientation R5-6, so I know that this is an R5 motif and it's in the top left-hand corner. So actually I'm going to always put my labels in the top left corner of my motifs, and then that way it helps me right away with the orientation. So I've gone on to make do some more. This is number 10. This is number 2. This is number 5. This is number 8. This is one of these vertical ones, and my label tells me that. 8, and the 2 motifs are stacked up on top of each other, so R4-6 and R1-2. So my label tells me that it goes this way. I'm going to take out the seam on this one and finish that, and I've got a few more lying around here in the living room, all spread out all over the place with their labels ready to go when they're seamed. So thanks again for joining me here at Life LDC.